Hi, I'm Cristy Fincher, and welcome to the next part in my double wedding ring quilt along series featuring the piec-lique technique. In this video, we're going to assemble our arches and our center of the melon wedges and make a whole melon unit. For this, you'll need an A arch that's turned, a B arch that's turned, and one of your melon wedge centers that has already been cut using your template. The template is your template seat that we cut in a previous video. You'll also need your Elmer's washable school glue with the fine tip and a hot dry iron, and maybe a couple of straight pins just in case. So the way that this gets assembled is actually upside down. We are creating our units from looking from the back. So you're going to actually be assembling this with your seam up and making layers. Think of it if you need to, it's kind of like when you're paper piecing and you are layering your your fabric onto the backside of your paper. But with this, we're going to layer everything ahead of time and get it all glue basted with our Elmer's washable school glue. So the first arch that you'll need, well, first of all, you'll need your layout template with the melon wedge. We are in this video just doing the melon wedges, so I'm focusing on that area right now. So the first arch that you're going to start with is the large arch because we are actually going to layer on top of it. So we wouldn't want to place the small arch first because when we attach the large arch and layer it, since this is the back side, when we turn it over, our piece would be raw on the front side. So we are going to layer our larger piece first. And if you are doing, for example, here I have the piece or the solid arch, but if you're doing the pieced arch, on this one, it's very important that you line up the seam intersection here. See right here where this seam intersects? There we go. Right here. This little point has to intersect and match that little point. So we just line it up and pin it. And then over here, if all goes according to plan, right when you lay it down, that next intersection of your seam shall land right on that. And it did. I love when that happens. It just landed right there. Sometimes if it doesn't, for example, if it was just a tad too long, you could ease it in just a bit and just double check to make sure that your piece is inside both straddling the black lines of your layout template here. And if it still isn't, I could help you individually and see if I could figure out what's going on with it. But it should match up. It should match up because you've already, when you were turning that arch, we matched up those seams specifically, and we didn't worry too much about these inside seams when we were turning the edges. So that's going to help ensure that it's going to match there. So when we have that done, excuse me, we're going to place the small arch right on top, and we're going to glue the small arch to the ends to this portion of the large arch. So you'll get your Elmer's washable school glue with that fine tip and draw a fine line of glue, 1/16-ish of an inch away from the edge. You don't want it right on the edge because we want to avoid glue seeping onto the paper. But just that length of it. And then center your arch so that it is just right on the insides of those black lines. And you're going to get that intersection of that seam right here where we want it, right here and here. We don't want this arch to lay on top of the seam, because when we piece everything together, we'd be cutting off that nice point. So here, this is going to help us make that nice point. So once that's done, give it a little heat set. Then next is our center. This is one of my favorite parts. Next, we'll draw a fine line of glue around that eyeball looking part, that melon, just right that 1/16 of an inch, all the way around. Fine line. We don't want it to be too thick. And then whichever is your front of your fabric, make sure it goes face down, and then center it over, and then heat set it. And then one of my favorite moments is the big reveal. So you can take those little pins out, flip it over, and look at that beautiful melon wedge that we just finished. I think it looks fabulous. So the next part that you would do is just continue making your melon wedges according to your plan on your design. Now, after you get all your melon wedges done, you're going to sew. So we're going to go over that into the next video. So we have a little bit of sewing and trimming to do before we end up attaching all of our melon wedges to the centers. And the seams that we're going to sew are going to be these seams here. So we're going to be sewing, just like we did previously, right on that crease. We're going to sew the short seam first, which is the seam that is attaching your short arch, your arch A. We're going to sew that first, and then we'll sew the seam right on the crease that attaches your arch B. And the reason we do it in that order is we have to sew this seam before this seam, because this seam will actually intersect this one. And just like with paper piecing, we need to sew the seams that get intersected before you sew the seam that will intersect it. Hope that made some sense there. So we'll go ahead and just keep on making some melon wedges. I'm going to do one more for you, just so we're on the same page. So we'll go ahead and get my solid arch, that big arch A. And this one, it's nice because we don't have to worry about matching this up right here. That's one of the reasons I like solid arches. But I do pin it just to give it a little bit of security so it doesn't move all over place. Make sure it matches up nice, because I do want my centers. There we go. Okay, then we get our small arch, whatever that is for you. Get your glue down to the tip, draw a fine line on both ends. And I like to line up that center seam if you're doing a pieced arch, just so I know that it is centered. Give it a little tap and then heat set that down. Pick what your center is for this one. And then draw your fine line of glue around the edges of the arches in the center for the center of your melon wedge. Again, a light line, don't need a lot here. And then front side down, right side down, center it, and give it a heat set. And you'll just keep doing that till your melon wedges are all assembled. I like to get them all assembled before I sew, and then I can just do everything in assembly line and just chain piece it all. That's my preference anyway. So in the next video, we'll stitch them together, and then we'll start assembling them all together. That looked great. I'm so excited. Thank you for joining me. I can't wait to show you some sewing in the next video, and then we'll get assembling everything else together. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.